Because how many people in your life have gone all the way for you? Have given, in a way, given everything for you to help you out. That kind of act of generosity. Let me give you an example of devotion, a story, a beautiful story. There was, do you remember the story of Sudama? So during the time of Krishna, Krishna lived, 3100 BC. And he lived on a palatial island with his devotees. They called it Dwarka. I've been to Dwarka, by the way. I went to go visit. Actually, it sunk into the ocean, but I went to the very shore where Dwarka was, and that's where Krishna lived with his devotees, and his devotees loved him. Man, Krishna was awesome. You got to know him. He would play with you. He'd be your friend. He would help you spiritually, whatever. He played all the roles for people. So there was this one person named Sudama who grew up with Krishna. And they both went to Gurukul, which is Guru school. Guru school.
Mm-hmm.
They went to Guru school together.
How great.
As kids. They're probably 7 years old, something like that.
Only boys though, right?
Boys, yeah. The two boys went to school, and they met their gurus. They had a guru, and the guru wife was there too. And so the guru taught them all these spiritual things and how to become genuinely good people and all that. And then one day, they were sent out into the forest to do something, to do an errand, the two of them. And so Krishna, who was the younger one, and his older brother, call him his older brother, but his friend, whose name was Sudama, went out into the forest, and the guru wife gave them some chickpeas to eat, yeah, just in case they got hungry while they were traveling through the forest. Well, it turned out that
One of them ate all of them.
At night it got quite cold, and they had to sleep underneath a tree in the forest. And the Sudama got really hungry, and he remembered the chickpeas and thought, I need my strength. Krishna will be okay, but I need to lead Krishna out of the forest. I'm really hungry. And so he sneaked the chickpeas and crunched on them. They were cold, and he crunched on them. And they were loud crunches as he was eating them, trying to hide from Krishna. Of course, Krishna heard this, but Krishna didn't say anything. Krishna's Krishna. He's the power of God. He could invoke all the
Raining chickpeas.
Raining chickpeas. He could have. He's an incarnation of God, easily. But Sudama had mistrusted the whole thing, so he took the chickpeas. And that was considered in that society a sin to eat before you're younger, anyone who was younger than you. It was considered not good karma. And of course that karma ended up haunting Sudama for the rest of his life, where he was poor, destitute, and even he got married and his wife had to share in his bad karma. And they were poor. And Sudama always regretted that incident. And while Sudama became poor and lived in a shack, Krishna lived on Dwarka in a palace, right? Considered as the greatest emperor. And then one day, the wife of Sudama said to Sudama, you need to go make up with Krishna and just tell him everything. He's rich. He's your friend. He could help us. And you know what? I'm going to make all of our rice, or I call it chickpeas, all the chickpeas that they had left, because they were that poor. I'm going to put it in a bag. I'm going to cook it. And you can bring it to give it to him as an offering. Everything we have, I'm going to put in this knapsack for him. So she specially made the chickpeas.
And what happened?
And he traveled so long. I mean, it was quite a ways to travel. And then he got to the gate of the palace finally on this island, beautiful walls. And the guards saw him and said, "Who are you?" He said, "So I'm Sudama, I'm Krishna's friend." And then the guards laughed and said, "Are you kidding us? Go away." Because he was like, by that time, skin and bones. So they just totally rejected him. And Sudama refused to leave. And he stayed by the palace doors and waited. I need to see my friend Krishna. And for days he stayed there. And finally, there was a jester in the palace who had heard the news that some ragged man was outside the palace walls claiming that he was a friend of Krishna. And he told that story in the inner courtroom, where Krishna was. And when Krishna heard, because this man said, and he says his name was Sudama. And right when Krishna heard the name Sudama, he got up from his throne and ran to the front gate. It was his friend from childhood. And sees there Sudama, skin and bones, his feet raw, and brings Krishna himself. And by the way, everyone else is following Krishna in astonishment, thinking, what in the world? We've never seen him do this. Mm-hmm. Krishna himself brings Sudama to his own throne and sits him on the throne and cries.
Who cries?
Krishna.
Okay.
He cries because this is his child friend that he loves so much. And he looks at Sudama and says, "Why? Why didn't you come before and seek my help?"
Oh, it's so great.
And then Krishna, and of course Sudama was stunned. And then Krishna looks at him and says, "Did you bring something for me?"
Yeah.
And Sudama didn't even want to say anything because he was too embarrassed, because all he had, which was everything he had that his wife made for him, was just this little sack of chickpeas. So he kind of hid it.
Oh, no.
And said, I too embarrassed to give, because Krishna lived in a palace, to give this to the emperor of the, he couldn't do it. And then Krishna says, "Come now, didn't you bring something for me?" And finally, Sudama says, "Well, yes, my lord, I did." And he takes out this little bag of chickpeas. And Krishna looks at it and says, "Oh my gosh, this is so wonderful. Thank you." He opens it and he takes the chickpeas and he starts eating it. "Sudama, this is the most wonderful tasting food I've ever had, because it was given."
From the heart.
Yeah. So he's eating it, and after 2 handfuls full of chickpeas of eating, his queen, whose name is Rukmini, places her hand on Krishna's shoulder and says, "Stop, my lord, don't eat anymore." Because according to rules, according to the tradition of that society, when you eat the guest's food, you're giving in return. In other words, by eating 2/3 of this offering that Sudama brought, he was giving away 2/3 of his kingdom.
So he gave away 2/3 of his kingdom to the god.
Sudama.
Oh, isn't that great?
Because that's what devotion means. You will do everything for your friend.
I like that a lot.
You'll give everything, even 2/3 of your entire kingdom. That was the extent of Krishna's generosity, of his care and his love. Even though long ago Sudama had eaten the chickpeas secretly, that didn't matter. It was his friend, and his friend for life. So Sudama didn't know really what happened. He just thought, well, is Krishna really enjoying my food? I'm glad. And after 3 days of staying at the palace, he had to go because you stay 3 days for a guest and then you leave. So he's going back home, and he doesn't really think he got anything. He's like, well, I had a nice time with Krishna, and clearly he is divine. But, I don't have anything to show my wife. We're still very poor. So that's why, so he was kind of sad still, depressed, because he didn't know that.
What happened?
He didn't really know what happened in regards to the exchange of the food and all that. So he's going back to his little shack to go see, and kind of embarrassed to tell his wife that nothing happened, really, except he stayed for fine time. And then he kind of arrives, and he, in place of his little shack, there's this castle. And he sees these beautiful women coming up to him and doing arati. You know arati?
Mm-hmm.
They're lighting the candle for him and honoring him and sharing their joy with him. And he's looking at them going, and he sees this woman, who is this? Who are you? I don't know you. And then one of the women looks up and says, it's me, your wife. He didn't even recognize her because she was dressed up in all these nice clothes. And he says, what happened? He says, well, your friend Krishna gave us a palace and all of this as an act of generosity. We've been given all this by your friend.
Oh my God.
And Sudama felt, oh my God, all this time I felt gloomy that Krishna didn't give me anything. And look, he's given me the entire world. Everything. And he realized what a selfish friend he was, that he had no trust in Krishna, really. He didn't trust. And of course, that was the final straw for Sudama, where he became enlightened, when he realized the immense generosity of the divine, known as Krishna. When he realized that in that moment, when everything was given to him, his soul was freed. He was enlightened.